Hello, my name's Marcus,
I'm Ffion.
and you're listening to the Recovery Hub podcasts,
Knowing the Score with Eternal Media.
a drug education and alcohol education series of podcasts.
This is a co-production between Eternal Media,
Meddwl Ymlaen, Mind Our Future,
and North Wales Area Planning Board.
Where are you from, Zoe?
I'm a Wrexham girl.
To start at the beginning, what was school life like for you?
I mean, I can remember back to when I was about 6 or 7, and the beginning of my school life, that always felt lonely. So I used to have to walk to school on my own, and I always felt the most smallest, insignificant, irrelevant person going. And even in schools, I'd always feel different to everybody else. I felt stupid in school. I didn't feel worthy. I didn't feel clever enough.
Would you say you felt isolated or separated from your peers?
So there's kind of two parts to this. In the early kind of like, junior school, before I went to high school, I felt separate from. I didn't feel, a part of. I felt different, unwanted, unliked. But then, when I got to high school, I was in all the top sets for everything. But my behaviour, I used to kick off a lot in school. I was letting a lot of stuff out in the classroom that I carried with me as a child, And I can just remember being dead naughty in school. So I was kind of the class clown. And I used to think I was, kind of like Jack the lad, only I was a girl. I hung around with all the lads. I was just looking for the next get out, kick me out of class. They'd send me to the headmaster's room. Or they'd and I'd just walk out of school. I'd go and get my mum. And my mum would march me back down. Don't you speak to my daughter like that. So in the beginning, when I was very young, I felt separate, different, isolated. But that's what I wanted when I got to high school. Because I didn't want to be part of the school. I didn't want to be in the top sets for everything. I didn't want to be the goody two-shoes,
What would you say your home life was like for you?
Home life for me. Do part of this question, I'm going to be really honest, but I have to be really mindful. My mum has never really heard this from me, but I have to be honest with you guys. My home life consisted of getting up, going downstairs. My mum and me would always argue over my stepdad. I had an elder sister who was very violent to me. My mum would always be at work. If she wasn't in work, she was in the pub. So I always felt that separation, that anxious attachment, because I wanted my mum. Stepdad come in the way. So I never felt safe. I was always in my guardians. That was someone my mum paid to look after me. And my mum would always be going on holidays without me, and I'd be I'd always be like, but Mum, why aren't I good enough? Why can't you take me? And then there was a lot of stuff going on as a child, I'd go and visit my dad on a Sunday. I felt like an inconvenience. I didn't hear off my dad for many years. Stepdad's aggressive with me. Mum's never there. All I want is someone to, love me and hug me, like I see other mums doing. I used to look at my friends' other mums and go, why can't my mum be like that? Why can't my home life? What's wrong with me? There was a lot of love and affection in other homes. There wasn't. My mum gave me love and affection as she knew how, which was buy me what I wanted. Yeah? But there wasn't that safe space. There wasn't that kind of home environment I could go in and feel loved. And I couldn't even sit in the living room in my own home because I dropped a bowl of stew once. And my stepdad you can go. So I always felt cast off and inconvenience. That's how I felt.
I think you mentioned a minute ago, did you say your mum spent a lot of time at the pub?
Yeah.
Yeah. Did she have any addiction or anything?
Looking from the knowledge I've got now of addiction, yeah, my mum might have not have took heroin or crack cocaine or injected. She held a job down Yeah, hard-working, tough woman. But the traits are there. In the pub every night, hard work. That was her addiction. Work hard, play hard. So addiction does run through my family. I've got nieces, nephews, my sister. It does, it's kind of, we use these buzzwords, don't we, like entrenched. It's generational. But it is, my dad was an alcoholic. A lot of violence, a lot of unsafeness. And I can see that now, that my mum, even though she may not, alcohol is a drug. Even though my mum may not have been one of them addicts that people looked at and said, oh, because she had nice clothes, always nice makeup, always, polite, dead friendly. And she was an addict in her own right. It was the work and the kind of like the work in the pub every night, the darts, she'd be playing darts, So I suppose that was her addiction.
Did you ever consider that to be an addiction at the time, or is it more looking back in hindsight type of thing?
It's definitely a hindsight thing. I mean, there's that saying, isn't there, that you can only kind of understand life going forwards by looking backwards. And I suppose I've had to look at myself over the years, and I've had to look at my own skeletons and my own behaviours to be able to recognise them in others and go, yeah. So that's the stereotype though, isn't it? That we don't speak about. We only talk about the homeless person or the person walking around in ripped clothes, smelly. We don't talk about the nice person with the nice house with the money who's got addictions, because that doesn't fit with our kind of like stereotypical view of addiction, does it? The stigma. But I definitely look back at my mum and kind of see how addiction runs through her.
Did you ever think you'd get addicted?
No, it wouldn't happen to me, right? There's always special and different. That won't happen. That happens to other people. It doesn't happen to me because I'm different than everybody. That's what I got growing up, right? I'm different. So in that case, that applies to drugs as well. Everyone else will get addicted. I won't. How wrong was I?
You've spoken about your school life and your home life, and that it does run in your family, and obviously you didn't think it would happen to you. But do you think that all these things impacted your decision and you becoming addicted?
Do you know, when I look at addiction now, when I hear the word, and this is just for me, not everybody has to agree with it, but I've got to give my truth. When I hear the word addict now, I hear the word escape. Because that's what drugs did for me. That's what my lifestyle did for me. It checked me out of life on a daily basis. So when I hear the word addiction, straight away I hear pain. What are you escaping from? Does that make sense? The word addiction for me is escape, and that's what I used it for. I was escaping life, pain, trauma, violence, rejection, abandonment. Me, most of all. That's what I was escaping, was me.
What was the first thing you tried? How come? What led you to trying the first thing you tried?
So the first drug I ever took was alcohol. And when I was about 5, 6, it was not unusual for your parents to give you, it was a little alcohol drink called Snowball or Baby Sham. Kind of giving me age away there, aren't I? But, I'm grateful I've lived to this age. And I can remember getting a feeling off it, getting an escape, getting a little giggle, a little buzz, bit giddy. And I liked it. So straight away I linked that to escape. And the scenario I'll give you is that when I used to go to my guardians, I used to lie there just wanting to be with my mum. And I linked the fact that she had an alcohol cabinet. And if I was naughty, she'd put me on a timeout at the back of the chair where the alcohol cabinet was. And I quickly, because I'm quite, I quickly realised that I could open that without her knowing, and I could nick the Tia Maria. And I could change the way I felt. And when I changed the way I felt, I didn't have all them sad feelings. So that was my first instance of escape. That was the first ever drug. And then it just progressed.
Do you want to bring it to me? I'm born addict. I can see addictive patterns, even when I was very young, into 7s and 8s, even before that. But I don't want to say what it was for me, because it might be the same for you. But can you recount any addictive patterns you had from a very young age?
Barbie dolls. I had to have all the latest Barbie dolls with all the nice dresses. Every single one I had to have. And I tell you another thing that I've noticed was, ever since being 5 or 6, I've always had this trait called fantasy, where I could zone out. If I don't want to, and I'm not doing it, by the way, guys, don't look at me and go, oh my God, you cheeky cow. But I've got this ability to zone out. If I don't like, I used to do it in class. If I don't like what you're on about, I'm over there thinking about horses and fairies and castles, because I'm only young, right?
Yeah.
And I'd go out. My mum would have to come and get me about 10 o'clock at night. It'd be dark and she'd be shouting me, Zoe. I'd be off playing me. I'm looking for fairies and dens, and because I'm in an escape is what I'm doing. I'm escaping. So I suppose I'm a liar. I was a liar. So I had them traits, but I didn't recognise it as an addiction. Does that make sense?
Yeah. Did you ever kind of nick money or anything when you were that young as well?
I can remember my sister used to run away a lot. And I remember my mum used to have the ironing board, and she used to pay the, like the provident woman, you know, like you get a loan and that. And she had these pound coins, and I robbed one and I put it in my top pocket. I used to rob my mum's fags. This is young, you know. My mum used to have these posh fags, and they were multicoloured ones. And I'd be robbing them out the drawer. I was a thief. I was a liar. I was obsessed. I was compulsed to change how I felt. So it was Barbie dolls, self-harm, eating disorders. They were all there. It was all signs that I was obsessed to change the way I felt. You know, I'd do it by cutting. I'd do it, you know, starving myself. And then I'd binge eat, and then I'd throw it all back. But that was cathartic to me. That was a release for me. Barbie dolls ain't doing it for me anymore. I'm growing up. My street cred's going out the window, you know, developing, not going out the window. If they'd have known about the Barbies, it would have. But we're not going to tell them, guys, are we? But you know, them obsessive kind of states of mind, that's where it started.
Actually quite curious to know, because you keep talking about like you getting that feeling and it kind of changing how you were at that exact time. Did anyone else notice any changes in you, like changes in your behaviour?
In school, the teachers did, because I went from this. So when you know, I said about my home life and that, and my sister was very violent. But outside of the home, she was very protective. And if anyone picked on me when I was younger, straight up just batter them. Violence runs in our family, yeah? You're told, you don't back down to no one. Doesn't matter who it is, man, woman, beast, you get out there, you protect yourself. You don't start it, but you certainly finish it. But I was a sweet little kid. I was my mum's little spoilt little girl up until a certain age when my stepdad come along, which I think created a lot of the attachment issues. So, you know, it's kind of like my sister was very protective, because I went from this shy little kid where like everyone had to fight my battles to this little aggressive kind of wanting to fight everyone. I had social services involved, youth centres. So people were noticing from a young age that I was changing, and, you know, there were signs there.
Okay, so after alcohol, where did your addiction really progress from there? You know, what did you go to next? And
so in school, it was Tipp-Ex. It was Tipp-Ex thinners, and I'd be sniffing it at the back of the class, yeah? Then it'd be gas.
Taking me back.
I'd be sniffing it. And obviously one of the traits I had as well was never knowing when I'd had enough. I didn't have a stop button. So it'd be gas. And then it'd be cannabis. Then it went to LSD, amphetamines.
But this isn't addiction yet, or is it?
I wouldn't... What define addiction? I mean, it's me entering addiction. It's kind of baby addiction, Zoe, isn't it? It's kind of like, I know what you're saying about that entrenched kind of animal lifestyle. This is just me dancing with the devil and not realise I'm going to get burnt, you know?
So the kind of experimental stage.
Yeah.
What's next? What's next? What's next?
What does that do? What does that do? Where does that was nice. Where does that take me? Well, what if I took 2 of them? That my head was kind of like, absolutely, call the cops, I'm off me chops. So if I double that, that'll give me the double the effect, won't it? I'm experimenting. And then I found heroin. Addiction stage. Well, actually, no, I've just blatantly lied to you there. I actually found methadone reefers. You remember them, Marcus? Yeah? And how I actually got onto heroin was my partner at the time, when I was like 15, I seen him smoking heroin and I called him all the names under the sun. Because like Zamo, you kind of like, the stigma in the community was heroin was like shameful, it's bad. So I didn't like that. But he used to have these fags. And I remember I'd come in from work and they'd be in the ashtray. So I'd start smoking them, thinking it was just like cannabis. And then I'd be like, well, just take me where you're going, I'll come with you. And he'd make me sit outside the house while he went in to smoke them. But I'm curious, man. I'm like, why are you leaving me outside? It taps into that I'm not good enough, abandonment, rejection stuff. You're leaving me on a curb, I'm freezing. And then it'd be, well, just let me come in with you. And then I'd be buying them.
When was the first time you took it, and how did you end up getting to a point where you were taking it consistently?
I'd left school, I was about 16. And my partner at the time was a heroin addict, and he'd be off doing what he did. And I was just dead curious, you know. And I asked someone to get it me, and they refused. And then my partner found out about it. And I said, well, why don't you just get it me? And I remember smoking it, being violently sick. The room was spinning. I had these round pink sunglasses that I had to put on because I was absolutely, you know, my eyes were bloodshot. The room was spinning, but I felt warm and glowy and content and safe. And as soon as I tried that drug, it was like, yes, this is what I've been looking for. That feeling was what I was looking for. It's never about the drug, right? It's about the escape. That drug gave me a safe, content feeling because I didn't feel when I'd used it. And I remember being on the bed thinking, oh my God. Because films glorify all that, don't they? You know, like the films of the day, and they're on the bed and the room's spinning. They're like, yeah, man, that's how I felt. I was like, yeah, I've arrived, you know?
Do you remember like the time that you kind of had the realization of, oh, I'm addicted to drugs?
Yeah. I had my first flat. I was about 16, 17. I remember waking up one morning and I was sweating. I was shaking. I couldn't sit still. I was feeling sick. I had the runs. And I remember walking out the house to go and get the reefer, the smoke, yeah? And I remember saying to my partner at the time, oh my God, what's the matter with me? And he laughed and he went, you're rattling. And I'll always remember that because at the time, it just hit me like a sledgehammer. I'm addicted. In hindsight, looking back, I feel sorry for that little girl. Do you know what I mean? Who knew nothing. But that's my recall. And I was like, oh my God. But I tell you what come over me was this uncontrollable urge to never be without that drug because of how I felt.
When, how and why did you go from a reefer to heroin? How did that come to be?
Yeah, so what did that transition look like for you?
So at a very young age, I'd had to go to my local GP for help with my addiction. I went for free drugs, really, because that's what the GP did, give me free drugs. And they give them fags that I was buying, they give me for free. And I just used to have to go to a chemist every day, pick them up, and that was my use up for the day. That was my substance for the day. And then the doctors, because they have all these guidelines now in kind of doctors and that, and they stop them. And they give me methadone liquid and I hated it. But I was addicted and I was withdrawing. And that's when I started smoking heroin. Just remember having to buy heroin to take because I was sick from the fags that I just thought was like cannabis. And I'll tell you a little bit of background before that, because the partner at the time was a heroin addict. His mates couldn't even speak to him if he was with me, because I'd be like, look at you dirty smackheads, move. They crossed the road rather than look at him because I'd kick right off. I was a bit crazy back then. Do you know what I mean? Just a little bit. And I'd be like, who are you talking to? Move now. Get away with me, you dirty junkie. Because I didn't get a drug was a drug was a drug. I'm all right doing what I'm doing, but you're not all right. It's that looking at everybody else to make myself feel better, isn't it? I'm fine doing what I'm doing. You're the junkie, you know? But that's just kind of like the gut-wrenching feeling of having to go to smoking heroin, you know? Tried it, liked it, loved it.
How old would you have been by that point?
About 16, 17. Yeah.
How long do you think you were addicted for?
Easy 28 years. Addicted to a substance, a drug, a mind and mood altering substance. I'm still addicted now. Trainers, clothes, shopping. I still escape in my own ways, but they're not as harmful and detrimental to me and most importantly others. Because I dragged my family, and that's my kids, man. I dragged them through my addiction, but I'm sure them questions are coming and I don't want to take any more from you.
I think to me personally, that really puts kind of, I'm going to say, like the addiction world into perspective, because obviously had the honour of interviewing Lowry, and she said she was addicted for 6 years. And to me, from an outside perspective, that's a long time. But I think we kind of had the discussion of, like, to people in that world, 6 years isn't long. So for you to say 28, I think that is quite, to me, that is like, whoa, like now I understand from the point of view of people in that
Lowry
world.
felt it wasn't long because she knows a lot of people with longer, but hers was really intense. So how old are you, Fee?
17.
17.
Okay. So put another 11 years on how long you've been on the planet. And that's how long Zoe was addicted to substances for.
I think it's, to me, like, because obviously I remember as well being in disbelief that Lowry did say, oh, well, that's not a long time. Because to me, I'm very fortunate to be able to say that I have never taken anything.
I was sticking needles all over my body by the time I was your age, you know?
I think it's, I do, and even still, I do remember saying it's really interesting to me to kind of, I'm learning these things from an outside point of view with no bias, because it's not something I do have experience with. But yeah.
I suppose there's a little bit of ignorance that went with me as a kid, because I remember the times when I was, you know, like robbing the alcohol and having the giggles, and it was innocent. It was just a change in feeling. A little amount of drugs, a hell of a lot of laughter. And then take that 28 years and transfer that little amount of drugs and a hell of a lot of laughter to a hell of a lot of pain and a hell of a lot of drugs. There was no laughter, you know? No laughter.
How do you, first of all, do you think, but if you do, then how did drugs change you, and did they have individual effects, different effects, depending on what you had taken? Or
Drugs changed me in the fact that my little sips of alcohol out the Tia Maria cupboard, I could leave, yeah? I didn't need to do that the day after. The more my addiction progressed, I was taking LSD to go to school. I was just taking it on a Friday. Bottle of Thunderbirds, Mad Dog 2020, chipping our pocket money in. Then it was cannabis. Well, I'm not going to go to this school lesson. Let's go and have a spliff, you know? And it changed me because the more the drugs surrounding my life, the more I had to have. So it changed me from this sweet little girl who was dead, like innocent. And I was dead innocent at one point. And drugs changed me, because what they did, they give me a mask. So then all of a sudden I have to be this girl who's got a hell of a lot of trauma at a young age, but I have to be something else. So I have to be tough, and I have to be a street girl, a little rude gal, yeah? And now I have to go around fighting, and now I have to go around stealing. What I'm doing is I'm masking all that pain, and the drugs are taking me out of that. They're making me into something I'm not, yeah? And then I'm very self-centered and I'm selfish. And what I'm doing, it changed me, because I started hurting all the people that loved me. My mum, my kids, my family, my friends, yeah, my school friends. And I started loving the people that hurt me. The people that were hurting me, I was like, oh yeah. Does that make sense? They just turned me inside out, man. They made me do things, and again, I'm not going to go into it because I'm sure you've got questions, that I did not want to do. But it was like I couldn't stop.
I do want to ask, finance-wise, how did the addiction affect you financially? As in, how much were you putting into drugs, and how were you really affording that?
I'd rob, I'd steal. I've had black eyes when I've been withdrawing. This is where addiction took me. I've had times where I've been on my feet, where I've been selling drugs, and I could afford all the drugs I was taking. That wasn't very often, because I was my own best customer. And they don't tell you that. You know, that gangster lifestyle they promise you, it doesn't happen. It eats away at you. So I've had times where I've been surrounded thousands of pounds on the table in front of me in drugs. I've had times where I've had to get food out my own bin and peel the mould off it, because I've spent all my money on crack cocaine by 1 o'clock in the morning, and I drew the money out at midnight. And then I've had to get food out of the bin with mould on and eat it. I've had to rob money out my mum's purse. My mum has knocked on my front door. She's been in hospital, hard-working woman. She's had a blood clot, nearly died. Her first thought wasn't, I must go home and rest. Her thought was, I've nearly died and need to make sure Zoe's okay. And I remember sitting there watching her pull up on a scooter, knocking the door, and I just opened it. What do you want? What do you want? I was horrible with her until she said, now the lottery, right? You've won the bonus ball. And I went, ka-ching, drugs. Oh, Mum, oh, thank you. Oh, look, I love you. It made me into a Jekyll and Hyde, a demon, someone that was so far removed from who I really was. I've had to walk into shops and rob. I've had to take drugs over to other countries to get money to use. I've had to go and pretend to use my neighbour's phone so I could rob her purse. Yeah, I've had to degrade myself and others to get substances. And again, they don't tell you that when the drugs promise you the good lifestyle. They don't tell you the degradation that comes with it. The poverty, walking around covered in blood, yeah, stinking, hair all matty, not washing, not brushing, not eating, neglecting my kids. That's who it turned me into.
Have you ever done jail time?
Yeah. I got 3.5 years for possession with intent to supply. I thought I was dead cool and dead big and dead tough, and I got involved in organised crime. Kind of gangs would come and I'd be selling for them, and I thought I was big and hard. I thought look at me, I'm dead cool, me. Yeah, walking round covered in blood, stinking, by the way. Yeah, having my kids took off me, waking up surrounded by needles and methadone bottles and mess. My kids saying to me, Mum, is this all we've got to eat? And I'm looking at it, it kills me now. The gut-wrenching feeling I thought when, I'd have to share a tin of beans between them and 2 rounds of bread, and I'd give them 1 each. Knowing I was doing that to my kids as a mum. Do you know what I mean?
How old were you when you went to jail, and what was jail like? That first night in there, what was that like, and how old were you?
36 when I got out. I'd done 1.5 years, so I think I was 34 when I went to jail. I should have got 5 to 8 years, but, I got 3.5. And that tough girl that would fight anyone, man, woman, beast, I don't care who are you, let's go, yeah? broke. You know, when I got on that for the first night centre, there was no feelings. The only feeling I felt was, I've been in the cells overnight. I actually got arrested on purpose to go to jail because I was done, man. I was broken out, the life I was living. And I remember getting to jail and I was so scared. So scared. And that crying into my pillow came after I got a bit of meds. Do you know what I mean? I was like, my body was on fire, man. My emotions were coming back. I was in jail, not knowing when I was getting out. My family, I'd lost my kids, my mum, no one. And I'm in jail full of all these women who look tough, yeah? And you know when I say that drugs turned me into something I wasn't, and I say this, I was a lost, lonely, scared little girl who wanted to be liked and loved and accepted in a world where she didn't think she believed she deserved to be. And then I had to go in jail without drugs, rattling, pretending to be who I wasn't, because that lost, broken girl was there. And it broke me. And I'm glad it did. Because if it hadn't have broke me, I wouldn't be where I am now.
So rattling's another word for withdrawal, right?
Physical withdrawals. When I say physical withdrawals, I'm on about not being able to eat, not being able to sleep, constantly diarrhea, yeah, sweating, not being able to sit still, like I've got little men in my bones. I can't sleep. I'm shaking. I'm rocking. My head, you've got to remember with the physical withdrawals, boom, guilt, shame, remorse, sadness, sorrow. What have you done to kids? What have you done to your mum? Look at you. You're in jail. Absolutely tortured me, man. Absolutely tortured me. And then you've got to go out. So when I say pad, it's your cell, yeah? You've got to be sharing cells with people that you wouldn't even use with because they wouldn't be my type of person, yeah? And it's like, you can't escape. You can't just go, officer, can I just go out for a minute? But then the next morning when you've been crying all night and sleeping and not being able to sleep and that, you've got to go out onto that wing like the tough girl again. And I was just done, man. My heart, I was done. My soul, my spirit, my heart was done.
You mentioned that you started dealing. How old were you when you started, and how did you end up, dealing? What was your motivation that led you to end up dealing? Were you doing it for the money, for the drugs? How did you end up there?
I was selling LSD at 14 and I did it for the street cred. I did it for the free user. I did it for the image. Look at me, I'm a bad girl. Because I'm a broken, lost, scared little girl, but I can't communicate that to the world. I can't tell my friends and my mum. I'm just scared, man. I don't understand life. I want to be liked and loved and accepted. I couldn't communicate that, but I could use my fists and I could gain an image that wasn't me. I remember 3/4 leather jackets, hanging around with all the kind of camps car park was a big car park, all the boy racers, all the nice cars and the people like with the street cred and that, the cool kids. I wanted to be them. And that's what it gave me. It gave me an image. And it gave me a numbness. Because along with the image of who I wasn't, remember, got the escape. So I didn't have to think and I didn't have to feel and I could be someone I wasn't. And you liked me and accepted me because I've got a power. Do you know what I'm saying? It was like, I felt relevant.
Is that always how it was? Or did your views towards it change at all as you grew up?
Do you know when heroin and crack cocaine became involved? It was a survival mechanism. It was I need to use. And if I'm honest, I thought I was dead cool selling and I wasn't. I was vulnerable is what I was. But again, I was looking for that acceptance. And I always looked for it in that kind of criminality because I could fit into that world. Criminality, fighting, drugs, because I'm full of drugs and I'm not feeling it. And it's escaping the guilt, shame, remorse, sadness, sorrow. I was actually selling my soul by selling drugs as I got older and I didn't even know it. I was selling my soul and my pain and my misery to make other people fat and rich. And I didn't even know it, man. I was selling my kids' souls, my kids' lives, my mum, that poor woman's sleep, peace of mind. I robbed it to be someone I wasn't, and I just give it all to other people thinking, yay. Remember I said I loved the people that hurt me. They didn't care about me. They took advantage because someone would take the jail time. I lost all my kids, do you know what I mean? To keep someone else rich. But I didn't get that because I thought, yeah, but I can keep drugs and I can sell it and I'm cool and I'm powerful. And I couldn't have been more wrong.
What did your life look like as you became a mum?
I was in detox at 18 years of age. I'd found out I was 22 weeks pregnant. And in my head, my baby is not getting born addicted to drugs. So I went straight in a detox unit. I work in the same detox there now. I work with 18-year-olds coming in for ketamine. Do you know what I mean? And I look at them, I go, you're babies. And I just want to hug them, man, and say, just stop. But people have got their own lives, haven't they? You know? So I'm 18 and I'm in my first detox centre. And I'm pregnant. And I'm like, this is going to change me. That baby is going to change me.
What if someone had come up to you at 18 in the detox centre, come up to you, hugged you, and say, just a baby, just stop?
I probably would have cried, first and foremost, because I had have felt that. But automatic response after that would have been, shut up. Absolutely not. I'm a big tough girl, you know? And I wasn't.
You know, a lot of these, well, this series is really powerful because you're talking to a 14-year-old person who's just starting on the first spliff or the first bit of drink or the first whatever, thinking down the line at the bitter ends, jails, homelessness,
The violence, the trauma,
the pain we inflict on others and ourselves.
Yeah,
No more so than ourselves.
absolutely.
It must just be like a different planet, that can never happen. That's so far removed, isn't it, from that first spliff?
And that's what used to confuse me, right, throughout all my using. It was kind of like, how did I get from there to there? And you know, like I said about my daughter, when I was pregnant, I got off everything. And she was born. She still is, yeah. I've got 3 daughters, so I can't say the most beautifulest thing, they'll kill me. One of the most beautifulest things I've ever seen. And she's still stunning now, yeah. But she couldn't keep me clean. But you know that switch from being pregnant, getting off everything? I even got the rules changed in the Wrexham Hospital. So when I was pregnant, they automatically used to give the babies drugs because babies withdraw. But I was like, hang on a minute, you're not doing that to me because I've been off it. So I did a lot of work with a paediatric unit and looking at how babies detox. Anyway, I was arrogant and I was adamant and I was getting my own way, right? But I changed the rules. And when I was in the hospital, I was the mother, everyone was coming to see me, all the nicest clothes. I was going to be Mary Poppins, right? Waking up with the birds tweeting and, you know, animals bringing me all the baby's clothes and helping me. And I was like, I'm going to have the best house and I'm going to be the best mum. And drugs stole that from me the instant I left that hospital. You know, when I had to start taking care of me again, taking responsibility for my own life. I'm having no sleep. I've got a baby. I can't even look after me, right? And then I've got a little baby and she's beautiful and I love her. But this addiction, man. Just look at you've had no sleep, have you? Oh my God, you're out of hospital now. You've had the baby. The baby isn't in your belly anymore. Just have one. Just one. No one will know. They won't know. And I'm back. And every time I detoxed, I was in and out that detox for many years, man. 2-3 times a year. It was my safe haven. And I'd always say, I'm all right now. And I'd get, I'd start having a wash and brushing my teeth, save up for a new pair of trainers and get my mum would buy me stuff. And I'd come out and it'd be there. Just have one. No one will know. And then that confusion that you spoke about, what happened, man? How did I go from there to there again? What is wrong with me? It's a me problem. I'm wrong. I'm not wired right. And I go through all these different criticisms of me, not knowing what I know now. Do you know what I mean? How did I get from that young, sweet girl pinching Tia Maria, to sticking needles all over me place, pawning my kids' toys, their Christmas presents, by the way, yeah? Pawning them to buy substances. How did I get there? Because I don't want to be doing that, but I can't stop, man. And my heart's heavy. And I just did not know what I'd got myself into. And then I'm getting used and abused by other people and thinking I'm dead cool. Do you know, as an adult, clicking that connection, it's mad.
What did home life look like after your first daughter?
Chaos. Drug using. Neglect for my daughters. My mum would have to come and look after my kids a lot of the time. I didn't even want to take my kids to school unless I'd used drugs. At one point, I'd felt really shameful to sit here and tell you that. I don't know, because I'm not there anymore. And I think it's important that we do highlight where it does take you, yeah? There was dirty nappies all over the place. There was rubbish all over the place. My kids would have computers 1 minute, they'd be porn the next. There was domestic violence. My kids were scared and confused a lot of the time. I'd leave them on their own while I went to school. Do you know what I mean? That's what my home life was like. I was an absolute train wreck. I felt that insignificant as a mum, as a human being, that if somebody had a spat on the floor in front of me and I'd have stepped in it, I feared I'd have drowned, because that's how little I felt in the world.
Were you aware at this time how big of a problem you had?
Yeah. By that point, yeah. Do you know, on my first daughter, fine. Not fine, but afterwards I'm giving her to her dad's mum. While I just go out on madness weekends. I won't be an hour. I'm coming back days later. They're looking after my kid. Second child, I stayed on drugs a bit longer. Third child, I'm smoking drugs on the labour table. Damn right I knew, but I couldn't stop.
So you've talked about the love that you've got for your daughters and how, how much of a remarkable woman your mum was. Why do you think that wasn't enough to keep you clean? Because
the demon was in my head. The demon was in my thoughts, my attitude, my behaviour. I believe now that I suffer with obsession and compulsion. My thinking is a bit different. The love for my kids was never enough, because I lived with a head that wanted to kill me on a daily basis. My kids were responsibility, and I used to escape the responsibility. And let's have it right, I liked drugs. They did what it said on the tin, right? I'm not going to sit here and say I didn't like drugs, but I liked it when it was consequence-free. I liked it when I could just have a little couple of spliffs, or a little toke, or a little blowback, or LSD trip, or a little sniff of gas. I didn't like it when I was having to stick needles all over my body. Yeah, rob my kids, rob my mum. And it just was never enough. It was never enough to keep me clean. It was nice, but it was temporary, because it come with responsibility and feelings. And I believe that that's because I live with the disease of addiction. My brain is wired a little bit different. They weren't a drug, It's a lot different now. But at the time, you put, I've got a water bottle in my hand. You put that there, and that is crack cocaine. And you put my daughter there, who I know needs nappies, feeding, winding, looking after, keep her safe, clean, all that stuff. I want to do that, but I'm like a magnet drawn to that. I hurt the things that love me, and I love the things that hurt me.
But that's how powerful it is.
Yeah, absolutely. It's like I have got no control. Magic shoes, I called it, where it's like you've got these shoes on that are taking you, and even every little ounce of being you've got in your head doesn't want to do that. You just can't stop it.
But Zoe, you're not a weak person.
Is it about weakness, though?
This is it. A lot of people might think, you must be so weak to go to that. You're not strong enough. People might think that, like, willpower exists, kind of thing. And
do you know how much willpower it takes to keep an addiction for 28 years? Dodging the police, robbing people, keeping it going. No police officer, prison officer, judge, solicitor, social worker, none of them got in the way of my drugs. That takes tremendous willpower to keep an addiction going like that. And people do look, oh, I have it. Why can't you just stop? Put some seeds in your ears. Do a bit of me. Have you ever used? No, so shut up. Do not tell me how to stop something because you do not live in my head. You don't understand it. It was never about strength and willpower. I believed I was a strong person going through all that trauma and the pain and the rejection and the abandonment, yeah, and the beatings and, the domestic abuse, I had strength to keep going when I wanted to die. I wanted to die on a daily basis, or so I thought. I used to say, I just want to die. I didn't. I so desperately wanted to live, but I didn't know how, because I had a head that wanted to kill me at every opportunity. By taking drugs, the way I was taking them, the amount I was taking, the combination, the states I'd have myself. Ambulances coming to having to bring me back to life. And I'd be fuming at them. I'd be angry. What you doing? You've ruined my buzz. That is not about strength or willpower.
What kind of effect would you say your addiction to drugs had on your family?
Shame, guilt, anger. This is from my mum's perspective. My kids, pain, confusion, abandonment, rejection, not feeling enough. My kids were taken off me, And I suppose that when I look at them now and I work with kids who have grown up with parents as addicts, I see the kind of the harmful effects that I've caused my kids. Stuff that they can never forget either. So my mum, I caused her a lot of shame because my mum's come from this place where you've got to have the nice house, the makeup, you've got to look nice all the time, keeping up with the Joneses, the neighbours, society. Oh my God, my daughter's a drug addict. I give her a lot of sleepless nights. And I suppose I give her a lot of, what did I do wrong?
You've also previously kind of mentioned that you've suffered with your mental health in terms of eating disorders and self-harm and those being affected by your addictions, but also being their own individual addictions. I was just wondering, how would you say your mental health was overall?
Drugs saved me. I have to put that out there. Drugs saved me. They were my solution. My life, my mental health, depression, anxiety, wanting to die, suicide ideation, self-harm. When I say suicide ideation, having thoughts of killing myself all the time, but never having the balls to do it. Hence why the drugs saved me. But I committed suicide on a daily basis by using drugs, not committed suicide, self-harm. Yeah, I paid on a time instalment plan for my own death. And that's why I say suicide. It was a slow, painful death that I entered into on a daily basis. When I got out of it, I was traumatised. I couldn't even sleep for about 18 months. I couldn't feel safe. I'd always think people were talking about me. As well as that, it was the shame that it brought, the guilt, the shame, the remorse, the sadness, the sorrow. Going out into I had social anxiety, PTSD, all that stuff that, doctors can give me. But the pain. And I still get that now, flashbacks and...
Obviously these are really big things. And we've talked about, and obviously Amanda has asked about things kind of not being a big enough reason for you to stop using. But what was it that kind of caused you to have that breakthrough, and how did your recovery start?
I was in jail. I come off my methadone, which is something that the doctors in there give you to replace the heroin so you don't withdraw, be physically ill and stuff. And I got off that, and I remember I'd been taken to a jail in Durham called Low Newton, and it was my daughter's 18th birthday. And I just had this epiphany. So I had this moment of thought that was dead clear that went, your daughter's 18, it's an important time in her life. The key to the door, is it, or whatever? And look at you in another jail. Before that, it would have been a rehab at Christmas or a detox at Christmas. And I don't know what happened to me. I just had this feeling that I was done. You know, it's like this feeling inside of, I can't do this anymore, man. I'm sick, I can't. The guilt was eating me, the shame, the remorse. And I just had this heart that said, you need to make up for this. You need to get back to your kids, man.
So obviously you did have that epiphany, but what did the rest of that journey look like to you?
Oh, God. I come out of jail with a little bag of clothes that didn't fit me. I had holes in my trainers because I had no money. My family didn't want to know me. I was put in temporary accommodation where everyone was using. I had a head and a heart that was desperate to stay clean, 40%. But I had this addiction that traumatised me, that just wanted to escape again. I'm coming out, I'd been in jail 1.5 years, and I'm coming out into society, back to Wrexham, clean, full of guilt, shame, remorse. I don't know who I am. I can't walk out of where I am because I'm full of social anxiety. I think everyone's looking at me, laughing at me. I'm in temporary accommodation where they're all using. Every ounce of me wanted to go and join that party, but every ounce of me was like, but you know what that's like, man? You know where that'll take you? It was hard, but it was also exciting.
Did your family support you at all through your recovery journey?
Do you know what? My mum had my kids live with her. She has supported me. She'd send me money in jail and stuff. You got to remember, I traumatised that woman. I lied to her that many times that she didn't believe a word I said, because that's what I taught her, not to trust me or believe me. And the one time I'm dead serious about it, she had to protect herself and them kids, man. So she supported me, as in she fed me and she let me go there, but she was still hurt, man. But she supported me in her own way. She never gave up on me.
Would you say there were any services that helped you in your journey? And I'm actually quite curious to know if there was any services that kind of helped your mum and you regain that relationship, have a better relationship if that has happened.
I mean, I suppose social services were there for my mum with the kids and to support her through that. I wasn't a part of that. I was busy doing what I'm doing. When I come into recovery, I started going to Champion's House. I had a peer mentor, someone who'd been in addiction, who made me believe, and his name's George, who enabled me to see recovery and that it could be possible. He'd gas me up every time I went there, man. You can do it. And I'd be like, yeah. I had to go to a place called the DIP Project because I was out of jail for drugs, and I had to go and give urine tests there, and they did like a child program, like a parenting program where I could work through all that stuff, that guilt, shame, remorse, see where I went wrong. And I didn't know how to be a parent, and I'm 36. I didn't know how to be a parent. I didn't know how to be me. And then there was Narcotics Anonymous, the lifesaver. They were all lifesavers, don't get me wrong, but I don't know, NA has given me something I never knew I had, and that was Zoe. It's given me a tapestry where I could weave this blanket that kept me safe and secure, and that I'd look at and think, I like that. It's given me the ability to shut up, wipe my eyes. It's like lenses that I never knew existed, looking out into the world, you know?
How long have you been in recovery?
Coming from a service perspective, I've been in recovery since 2014. But I come from a Narcotics Anonymous perspective. So in April, I'll celebrate, if I keep doing what I'm doing a day at a time, 10 years, a whole decade.
Wow, well done.
A whole decade. I could never get a whole minute. 10 years. And for someone who said, yeah, but you were using for 28, go stand at a bus stop for 10 years, yeah, and wait for a bus and then tell me it's not long. Nearly a full decade, you know.
I think that's a really, really big achievement.
Thank you. I just take it a day at a time, because I could never do forever me. If someone had said to me, you're never going to use drugs again, I'd have used drugs on the fear of not being able to use drugs forever. Yeah, so I just get up. I've got a saying, and I've got it. It's not my saying. I can't say, copyright it and that. I've got it from other people, but I wake up. For me, I'm not religious, but I am spiritual. I believe that, in love is a religion for me. How I treat others, the way I help others, the way I love myself as well. And I kind of nature, so I have got a higher power is what I'm trying to say. So I wake up, I trust that higher power, I clean my house, and I tell others how I've done it. And what I mean by that is I get up, I stay clean, I do what I've got to do, I take care of my kids, my mum, I take care of my priorities, I go to work, I pay my bills, and then I tell others how I've done it. Because it was that little light. It was an addict in jail who told me, you were an addict, shut up. You haven't got a heroin problem. And then I come out of jail and they taught me about NA in jail. And then I come out and there was a girl who worked in that drug place I told you about, who took me to my first meeting. So she helped me. It's like, a marathon where they give the torch at the end. She did that for me. And then many others kept it lit. Because I'd have doused it right out me, I'd have let it go, do you know what I mean? But many, many people in my recovery have helped me keep that torch lit. And, just the fact that I can sit here and say, in April, I'm going to be 10 years clean. That's without nothing. That's no slips, no dips, no weekend trips, man. I haven't used no spliff, no nothing. That's massive. I never believed that was possible. So I try and give that torch to other people whenever I can, man.
Do you remember getting a day clean?
I remember being in jail, giving up the Subutex. I've had many days clean if I was in a hospital, or it'd be painstaking. But this time, when I come out full of fear after doing all the jail, after my heart going, I'm done, my soul, my spirit, I'm done, I can't do it anymore, man. And I remember waking up the next day after getting out of jail and I hadn't used, and I was like, oh my God, I haven't used. Full of fear as well and anxiety. But that first 24, like, wow, I've done it, Terrified. I know I'm going to start crying myself, man. Do you know what? I never believed I could live the life that I live now. I've had my daughters come back and live with me. Do you know my mum, if I phoned her now, the joy you would hear in that woman's voice? I'd phone her up, I'd go, hiya, Mum. And now I phone her up, she'll go, hello, and I'll go, hiya, Mum. Hiya, Zoe. Do you know what I mean? It's like, my kids, they couldn't eat, they would cross the road before they admitted I was their mum. I've been on telly, none of that matters. I've done some good stuff and, been proud of some achievements, but the fact I can look my kids in the eye as a mum and be there for them and change and help them feel safe and make them feel like they've got a mum to be proud of is priceless.
You've obviously achieved quite a bit.
We could do a part 2 on my achievements. And do you know what? I'm proud of that. Do you know why I'm proud of that? The fact that I could sit here and talk to you probably longer about my achievements than I could my addiction. And that's a moment in itself. That's Narcotics Anonymous that has done that for me. And as well as Narcotics Anonymous, the other people that I've known you ages, Marcus, do you know what I mean?
Yeah, I think all of my recovery, pretty much, when I got out of rehab.
Yeah. I still remember the Champion House days, early recovery.
Would you say that your life is much better now?
I'd say it with capital letters and an exclamation mark that runs 1,000 miles. Do you know waking up in the morning? Waking up for a start. Because I've took that many drugs and I've died and the ambulances have had to bring me back. I should be 6 foot under, so let's just take that. I've woke up for a start. I've took a breath. There's people who are on nebulizers and really poorly, you know. In my own home that I pay for, that's got carpet, and you know when I open my bedroom door and I walk past my daughter's bedroom where she's safe and sound asleep, knowing there's no armed response coming to the door, there's no drug dealers coming to the door, I'm not going to rob her telly or her money, yeah? And I'm doing what I'm doing. It's clean, it's tidy, there's food, there's love, more importantly, yeah? And I've got to bring me puppy into it. I'm a nana, I've got a grand dog, and I love him. Do you know the fact that you can love and nurture something that just loves you unconditionally? Do you know what I mean? I love my kids, man. My life is so different now. I could do a part 3 on how good my life is now. I can look myself in the mirror these days and say, do you know what, you're all right. The fact I can look in the mirror is a big thing. I couldn't look at myself in the mirror. I walked around with a hood up. I can drive. I'm in 3rd year university. I'm going to be a social worker. This is the woman that had her kids taken off her because she neglected them, had to be put into hospital at respite because I was that poorly. I'd have died if they hadn't put me in a hospital. I'm nearly got a BA honours in social work. Check that out. Yeah, I'm dyslexic, I'm dyspraxic. Yeah.
You've talked about how a big reason why you did use was to kind of get away from responsibilities and kind of all those feelings, especially when you first had a daughter. Whereas now, 10 years down the line into recovery, you do have a lot of responsibilities and you're back taking care of all of the things that you used to get away from then. What support do you get that stops you from going back down that route?
I've got a lot of support from friends. I've got a lot of people in my corner that care. I've worked with a lot of people who care. I've got friends all over the world. I've got friends in Dublin, and I'm not being big-headed when I say that. That is the support I can call on. I've got a programme that I follow. You know, they're not rules, it's a way of living, man. Do you know what I'm saying? And I've got a memory etched in my heart of that girl who was there with the needle marks all over her, not being able to brush her teeth. And that's what I've got. I've got my family back in my life, my friends back in my life, employers in my life, you know. And I've got, do you know, one of the biggest support, and it's going to sound mad when I say it, but it's my truth, is knowing how many people out there are still struggling that I can help just by being me.
What kind of advice would you give to someone who's thinking about using for the first time?
It's not cool. It's not fun. Drugs are not your best friend, and it will take more from you than it ever gives.
What advice would you give to someone who's just starting their journey of recovery?
You can do it, and you're not alone. You don't have to carry any of that pain alone. There's people here to help you carry it with you. And just come and join us, man. Do you know what? Like, I talk about NA, but I've got a lot of friends who do recovery a lot of different ways. And I think recovery is beautiful because it's like we're all sat here with different trainers on our feet, right? But they all keep our feet dry as we've walked from the car to here to sit down. We've all got different clothes on. Yeah, but they're what keeps me all right, and you and you. And recovery is like that. I just want people to know that it's possible. Yeah, you don't have to do recovery my way. There's nothing special about me. I do what works for me. Other people do what works for them. You know, find a pathway of recovery, stick to it, don't give up. No matter what, dig deep, keep going. And we're here. Come and join us. We have so much fun, Marcus.
We do.
And not just that, we have so many achievements. We have so much pride in ourselves. You know, like I said, I've got friends all over the world. I never had friends all over the world. I didn't even have friends in addiction. It's a beautiful way of life, man. And I just want people to know that you'll regret it, but recovery, you'll never regret. You know, picking up and using and going down that road, you will regret. You won't regret the decision to come into recovery. With the knowledge I've got now, absolutely not. Absolutely not. With the knowledge I've got now, I never would have gone near it.
I didn't say that.
What did you say?
No, what off?
Did you?
So did
I loved it.
so did Lowry.
If you're saying, though, with the knowledge I've got now, obviously I know now that I can't use drugs.
What other question came up yesterday? What was your favourite time?
Yeah, Larry had loads.
So taking your answer into consideration there of no, you wouldn't,
Yeah.
to kind of change the question, if you could go back in time and make that decision of whether to use or not, and if you did, or to kind of put it into perspective, would you take again if you could choose where the line was and when it would stop?
If I could choose where the line was, I'd be out partying every weekend. I'd be dancing on tables, getting absolutely mad drunk, being sick in a kebab shop, waking up the next day with all chips in my hair and pizza on the side.
To kind of put that into perspective more, we obviously interviewed Lowry, and Lowry said that she would do it again, but there would have been a line of she wouldn't have taken something specific.
You change the question to I can use and there's a line. I'm going to say I'd be smoking weed and taking pills and going raving. My
problem is that I would have carried on anyway. I couldn't have stopped at that point. It was, the whole point, if you'd had that choice to stop knowing what you know now, I probably still would have had a go. Oh, it's just the way I'm wired. Because, I've got all that knowledge now. Now I know when to stop on the heroin.
But you don't take drugs now and you haven't done so successfully for a long time.
True.
So you have the knowledge that drugs don't work. So then why would you go, you've got that knowledge as a kid, why would you go against that? Because you don't go against it as an adult, so why would you go against it then? You've got the same knowledge as you have now. It's those kind of really hedonistic kind of days, those really, that experimental excitement. But we're on about the knowledge that you've got now. And the knowledge that you've got now is you can't use. I can't use.
I think, to me, it's curious in the way that it depends how you might view your journey up until this point, because one thing I thought was really interesting that Lowry did say was that without all the things that she has been through, she wouldn't be the same person that she is now, and she might not quite appreciate the same things as she does now. And that, I'm pretty sure that was one of the reasons why she would say that she wouldn't change it. So I thought that was quite interesting.
Absolutely. I mean, you kind of like, if I was sat here as a kid and you were telling me everything I've just said, would I use? Yeah, because that won't happen to me.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah? But if I've got the knowledge I've got now as a kid, I wouldn't go anywhere near it. But that means I've got the knowledge, doesn't it? But without going through the pain, I wouldn't have the knowledge. And without going through life's knocks, I wouldn't find life's blessings, would I?
I guess I just wish I could have stopped when it stopped being fun.
In your personal opinion, would you say that addiction is limited to drugs and alcohol?
No. Addiction isn't limited to drugs and alcohol. There's gambling, there's online shopping, addiction is masters,
I think a good way I've heard of it is it's just a symptom of something far bigger.
Drugs was the solution.
The further I get away from drugs, the more I realise my addiction was never about drugs. It was something bigger.
I can be addicted to sunbeds, tattoos, shopping, trainers, holidays. And that's because really the drugs was the solution. The problem was me, and still is me. It's my thinking, my mental obsession, my physical compulsion, and my self-centeredness, which means if I'm obsessed and compulsive, I don't care how I get that, and I don't care if I hurt you.
Okay. How was that for you, Josh?
Yeah, it was enlightening. I enjoyed the delve into the whole thought process type of thing when it came to getting clean and relapsing again, whether by conscious decision or not. That it had to happen, and it was part of it.
You do learn a lot from a relapse, and it can help you with your next go at recovery. What's your feedback? How did that go for you, Fee?
I think it's actually changed my perspective on a couple of I'm going to say personal things, and I'm not going to say I'm going to delve into that, but I think there's I'm not sure if it's the way you worded it or maybe our topic, the topic of conversation in general, but I think even for me, sat here in the room, not someone who's listening to it, yeah, I think there's a few times where I've been like, oh yeah, all right, okay, that actually puts that into a perspective or a way that I wouldn't have looked at it before. And I think it's provided me with maybe a lot of knowledge and information that I think I will definitely take away when I leave this room. But yeah, and obviously I just want to say thank you for being so honest with us and being willing to answer our questions so openly, because as I said, me personally, I've had experiences with family or friends with addiction, but not me personally. So yeah, it's been quite an experience.
What do you think, Amanda?
It's been really interesting to be able to hear from your point of view, from experiences I've had in my childhood. It answers some questions that I've always had and always wondered. And I think you've answered them for me today, like you saying, you loved your daughters and, they were enough, but at the time that was more important. And yeah, I just think it's put things into perspective for me. So thank you.
Thank you.
Zoe's story is nothing but inspirational. I learn something new about her every time I hear her. And the way she delivers her story, it's like poetry. She's such a good speaker and really inspirational. Next up is Ian. I met Ian in a fellowship group. Ian's really interesting because he got recovery in jail, and I don't know many people that managed to do that. And if you'd like to know how he did it, tune in next time.